Welcome back to Market Overtime. I'm Scott Connor, sitting in for Nicole Pedalides. Well, gaming and casino stocks have been in focus due to increased legalization of sports gambling and, of course, news of more scrutiny out of China. Now, to discuss this sector, let's bring in Mish Snyder, Director of Trading and Education and Research at MarketGauge.com. Mish, thanks for joining us. And let's get to the U.S. gambling stocks in a bit, but let's start first with the Chinese names. How has increased oversight weighed on these particular names?
Well, let's just go back a little bit here and see what President Xi has been very busy doing. In the last several weeks, he's announced that technology and the big monopolies he wants to break up. Of course, he's been having a history with Alibaba for some time. He announced that in terms of video games, kids are only allowed to play 3 hours a day. Then he started going after the big gambling casinos in Macau. And all of this really has to do with the fact that he's trying to make profits secondary to social obligation. And that's what you can do when you're doing a state-run capitalist society. And then Evergrande, of course, is the last, well, I'm not necessarily saying the last, but the next big part has been Evergrande, which really is a real estate company that is going to be having a lot of trouble paying the bonds, that really deals with the uber rich in China in terms of housing, which of course we saw as the bubble now for all the real estate companies in China following suit. So what is that doing to China stocks, obviously, is they're getting really hit hard. But we're seeing some trickle here also with the U.S. stocks, not only with the market coming off today, although that's only part of the problem, but particularly with some of those gambling stocks.
Got it. So increased scrutiny, not just on gambling stocks in China, but a lot of the different sectors that you pointed out. So getting back to the gambling stocks, do you think there is a potential buying opportunity for names like Las Vegas Sands and Wynn that have exposure in Macau?
Well, they get about 50% of their profits from Macau, so that's something to be noted. And Macau has been known as the area of decadence since 1999, so it's really going to be a matter of how much more he goes after it, because it's also a big revenue area there in China is from gambling, and the Chinese as a society often like to gamble. So it's going to be how far does he go with this, I think. So if you look at these particular stocks, right now, in terms of the technicals, I see Las Vegas Sands as potentially in the best shape. And if he eases up on that a little bit, then you have a situation now where if it holds $36 and gets back through $38, at least you know you have a very low risk. Wynn, not so much. That looks like it could still have some damage to the downside. And the other one I would be interested in would be Boyd Gaming, which actually has its headquarters in Las Vegas. And they right now that chart looks actually decent, particularly as you compare it to LVS and Wynn. And if it can get through 63, I think that also could have some follow-through to the upside. So the key is really going to be how far does he want to go to the point where they can take more economic pain, particularly, as I said, from the revenues that they get from Macau that's sent to China, and really more for his vision, which is to make poverty totally eradicated and really equal the distance between the very wealthy and the poor. And that's kind of what's happening here all over.
Got it. I was just looking at Las Vegas Sands and Wynn. Both of these stocks down recently about 45%. Let's turn to the U.S. now. How has increased legalization kind of reshaped how investors look at these particular stocks? Unfortunately, we only have about a minute left, so let us know your takeaway.
When you say increased legalization, I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. I'm sorry, Scott.
Oh, I'm just talking about different gambling stocks in the U.S.
I see.
That have increased, right? I'm sorry, yeah. We're switching to U.S. stocks now.
Oh, okay. So, let's look at a company like DraftKings, which has done very, very well. And of course, a lot of it is fantasy football, and that came off with the market today. So again, these stocks got very high in valuation. So I think that they would be something to look at for some kind of level of support. But you have to realize that when the whole market is going to go through a correction, which we don't know by today's standards is over by any means, then you could see more downside. So I think the legalization of gambling is good here. But again, we're really a global economy, and I think that's what we kind of found out today with the Evergrande being the tipping point of what happened with the U.S. and the gambling stocks.
Got it. All right. Well, some good takeaways for this particular sector. Thanks again for joining us. That was Ms. Schneider, Director of Trading and Education Research at MarketGauge.com. Now, let's turn our attention back to U.S. markets.